I never thought I'd become part of something like this. I'm just a vlogger. I film everyday things, coffee runs, tech reviews, sometimes random challenges. But when I got the email from that lab, offering money to join a sleep experiment, it sounded interesting. They said it was about lucid dreaming. That I'd sleep in a high-tech room, wear some headgear, and try to control my dreams. It didn't sound scary. It sounded fun. I accepted without thinking too much. On the first day, I arrived at the facility. The building was quiet, too quiet. It wasn't like a hospital. It looked more like a hotel, but colder, cleaner, too clean. A woman greeted me with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She told me everything was ready, that I'd be alone in the room for 7 days, and that I'd be safe. Those words stuck in my head. You'll be safe. Why did she say that? They took my phone. No distractions, they said. Just me, a bed, and a camera to document the whole thing. I'd vlog every morning after I woke up and share my dreams. Simple, right? They led me to the room. It was small but modern. A big white bed in the middle. No windows. Just soft lights, a camera on a tripod, and a weird machine next to the bed. The headgear looked like a silver helmet with wires, like something from a sci-fi movie. I joked about it to the camera, said I felt like I was in a space mission. But deep down I felt strange, like the walls were watching me. I lay on the bed and the technician helped put on the helmet. "Sleep tight," he said before leaving and locking the door behind him. That click, it echoed in the room. And it made me realize I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. The lights dimmed. I tried to relax. I told myself I was doing this for content, for money, for the thrill. But as I closed my eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That night I didn't dream. Or maybe I did, but I don't remember. All I know is, I woke up sweating. Not from heat, but from fear. I couldn't remember anything. But I felt like something had touched me while I slept. The camera was still rolling. And when I watched the footage later, I saw myself moving in my sleep. Twitching, poking, smiling. But I don't remember smiling. And my voice didn't sound like mine. That was just night one. And I already wanted out. But I couldn't leave. They had locked me in. And something told me it was only going to get worse. I woke up again day 2. Or at least, think it was day 2. There was no window, no clock, no sunlight. Just soft white lights from the ceiling. Always the same. Always fake. I sat up slowly. My body felt heavier, like I'd been running in my sleep. My arms were sore. My legs ached. My neck felt like someone had been pressing on it. The camera was still on. I looked into it and whispered, "Good morning, I guess." But it didn't feel like morning. I checked the footage from the night. I had to know what happened. I fast-forwarded. At 2:14 a.m. I saw something. I was lying there still. And then suddenly I sat up in bed. Open. Just staring. Not blinking. I leaned forward and whispered something. But the audio was low, like it was underwater. I tried turning it up. That's when I heard it. My own voice saying, "He's standing in the corner." Paused the video. Rewound. Played it again. "He's standing in the corner." I turned the camera around to face the back of the room. There was nothing there now. But in the video, the corner looked darker. Like the shadows were thicker. Like something was hiding there. But the scariest part, my face. It looked like me, but something was off. My eyes were wide open. Too wide. My mouth slightly smiling. It was like watching a stranger trapped inside my body. Kept watching. At 3:07 a.m., the lights in the room flickered. Just for 1 second. And then, the camera glitched. The footage turned static. Only for 5 seconds. And when the video came back, someone was sitting at the edge of the bed. It wasn't me. It was just a blurry figure. Ill. Head down. Long arms. Like it had been there the whole time. But when I woke up in the morning, the room was empty again. I didn't know what to believe. Was it a trick? Was the lab doing this? Was this all part of the experiment? I knocked on the door. No answer. Shouted, No answer. I even banged on the walls. Still nothing. I was alone. Completely alone. And yet, I wasn't. Could feel it now. That I was being watched. Not by the camera. By something else. Something I couldn't see. But it could see me. And it was waiting for night to come again. I didn't sleep the third night. Or maybe I did and just didn't know it. That's the terrifying part. When your mind and body don't agree. I sat on the bed for hours, watching the walls, waiting for something to happen. I tried humming to myself, reading, even speaking into the camera to stay awake. But at some point I blinked. And everything changed. I was suddenly standing in the corner of the room, facing the wall. I hadn't walked there. I hadn't even noticed the moment I got up. But my body was there, cold, stiff, and I couldn't move. I was frozen, facing the wall like a punished child. And behind me I heard breathing. Slow, raspy breathing. Not mine. I couldn't turn around. My body refused. My eyes just stared at the white paint in front of me. The cracks on the surface starting to swirl, like the wall was alive. The breathing got louder and closer. Then something whispered in my ear. A voice not human. It said, "You left the door open." My heart stopped. There was no door open. I hadn't touched it. But when I finally turned around, when my body allowed me to move, I saw it. The door was wide open. And the hallway outside was pitch black. I stood frozen at the edge of the bed, watching that darkness. I knew something had walked in. I knew I wasn't alone. I picked up the camera to check the live feed. First it showed nothing. Then the screen glitched. For 1 second a face appeared. Not mine. It was right in front of the camera. Pale skin. Black eyes. No mouth. Just staring. Then gone. I dropped the camera. Suddenly I was on the floor. Not from fear. I'd fainted just like that. My body couldn't take it. When I woke up, I wasn't in the room anymore. I was lying in a narrow space, surrounded by metal walls. The sound of humming machines filled my ears. Above me a light flickered. And to my side, a mirror. But my reflection wasn't moving. It was smiling. Just smiling. While I sat there gasping for air. That's when I realized. I wasn't dreaming anymore. And whatever had followed me into sleep now had control. I don't know how long I stayed in that metal box. Time doesn't exist the same way when you're stuck between sleep and wake. Every second stretched into hours. And every hour felt like a second stolen from my life. When I finally came back to the real world, if I can still call it that, I was back in the lab room. The camera was recording. The lights were on. My notebook lay beside me, open to a blank page. But I hadn't written that page. Someone or something had. In messy, crooked handwriting it said, "Thank you for letting me in." I couldn't breathe. I flipped the pages back. Every night of this sleep experiment, I had written dreams, feelings, symptoms. But none of them were as terrifying as this one note. This wasn't a dream journal anymore. It was a warning. I tried to leave. I rushed to the door, slammed the handle down. But it was locked. The doctor's voice came through the speaker in the ceiling. "Please return to your bed, Olivia. You're still under observation." I screamed into the air. I begged them to stop the experiment, to let me out, to tell me what was going on. No response. Only static. Then the screen on the wall flickered. A live feed showed the hallway. Me. Another feed showed my room. And then a third feed I had never seen before showed me. Not sitting. Not standing. But floating. Open. Arms raised. As if possessed. Except I wasn't floating. I looked at my body in real time. I was sitting. Breathing. Terrified. So who or what was the other me? That's when I heard tapping. Slow, steady taps against the mirror. I turned my head. The reflection didn't copy me. She stared directly into my eyes. Then raised her finger. She wrote something in reverse on the glass. "I want your body." I stumbled back, my head pounding, my vision blurring. Something inside me was shifting. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. I kept hearing whispers like someone was thinking through me. They didn't feel like dreams anymore. They felt like commands. Lie down. Close your eyes. Let me in. That night I didn't sleep. But it did. Inside me. And when I looked in the mirror again at dawn, my reflection blinked before I did. That's when I knew. I wasn't the only one in this body anymore. I tried everything not to sleep that night. Coffee, cold water, slapping my own face, screaming into the walls. Nothing helped, because it wasn't about sleep anymore. It was about surrender. The lights dimmed in my room without warning. The walls, once sterile and white, now seemed to pulse, like they were breathing. And in the silence, I heard it again. The whisper. It was coming from inside my head now. But it wasn't just a voice anymore. It was many. Broken, crying, some screaming, some laughing, some begging me not to close my eyes. Covered my ears. It didn't stop. I tried writing in the notebook again to ground myself. But the pen wouldn't work. Not because it ran out of ink, but because my hand was shaking so violently I couldn't form words. It was like my body was rejecting the act of being conscious. The camera in the corner blinked red. Recording. I looked straight at it and whispered, "Stop this, please. Something is wrong." The speaker above me crackled. But it wasn't the doctor this time. It was me. My own voice repeating, "She's almost ready. Just one more night." My knees gave out. I fell to the floor, holding my head, gasping for air. That's when I noticed the floor wasn't solid anymore. My hands had sunk slightly into it, like it was turning soft, spongy, almost like flesh. I tried to crawl away, but I couldn't. Every part of the room now seemed to move like it was alive. My bed pulsed. My chair folded in on itself. Even the mirror seemed to ripple. I looked again, and saw the girl from the mirror. My reflection, but twisted. Pale skin, black eyes. Her mouth was open like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Her hands scratched at the glass, desperate. And I realized she wasn't trapped behind the mirror. She was taking my place. In this reality. In this body. I banged against the wall, screaming, "Let me out!" Nothing. Then the light above me flickered. For just a second, in that blink of darkness, I saw them. Dozens of shadow-like figures standing around me. Some crawling on the ceiling. Some whispering into my ears. Some crying in corners of the room. They had no eyes, no faces, just outlines, but all of them were watching. And one of them walked up to me and whispered, in a child's voice, "We live where dreams die." Passed out. Or maybe I gave in. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't on the floor anymore. I was floating, above the bed. And the whispering was louder than ever. But not just in my head now. It was inside my bones. I was becoming one of them. And the worst part, I didn't feel scared anymore. Felt at home. I woke up, but not in the room I remembered. No hospital bed. No table. No camera in the corner blinking red. No clock ticking endlessly. Just walls. For smooth, pale walls. No seams. No door. No window. No light source. Yet everything glowed in this soft, grayish light. It felt like being inside a cloud that couldn't breathe. I sat up slowly, feeling an ache in my spine like I'd been asleep for years. My mouth was dry. My throat burned. But there was no mirror here. No voice on the speaker. No bed. No doctor. Just silence. And the sound of something breathing. Not me. I whispered, "Hello." My voice echoed strangely. It bounced back, but not as a repeat. Answered me. You finally woke up. Froze. It was my voice. Same tone. Same rhythm. But I hadn't said those words. I stood and walked in a slow circle, trying to figure out where the sound came from. Nothing. No change in the walls. No crack. No corner. Then I saw it, my shadow. It wasn't following me anymore. Stood still as I moved. And it smiled. Not in a cartoonish way. In a real terrifying way. A slit slowly opened up in the wall, right where the shadow was. It didn't look like a door. It looked like flesh tearing open. And beyond it was darkness. Complete, endless, hungry darkness. A voice from the dark whispered, "You want out. Wake up." I ran toward it. Anything was better than this. As I crossed the threshold, I didn't fall. Sank. The darkness swallowed me, not like space but like water. Cold. Heavy. And filled with tiny hands pulling at my skin. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. Only float through this thick, endless void. And then bright light. Pain shot through my body. My chest heaved like I was being yanked back into my own lungs. I was lying back in the original room now. The white bed. The blinking red camera. The speaker. Everything was as it was, except the clock was gone. And I wasn't alone. In the corner of the room sat a girl. Same as the one from the mirror. Hair covering half her face. Fingernails stained with something black. I asked, "Who are you?" She looked up slowly and smiled. "I'm what's left after you wake up." I blinked, and she was gone. But her reflection stayed in the mirror. She waved once, and then her mouth began to move. I couldn't hear her words, but I didn't have to. 'Cause they were mine. She was mouthing the same thing I said when I first agreed to the experiment. It's just a dream, right? Except now I knew it wasn't a dream. It was a trap. And something wanted me to keep dreaming. Forever. I thought the worst had passed. But I was wrong. The next time I opened my eyes, I was still in the room, with the bed, the mirror, and that cursed camera blinking in the corner. But something was different. The light was flickering now, like an old bulb ready to die. The air had changed too. It felt thicker, heavier, like I was underwater again, but without the wetness. Then the static started. Came from the walls. Not the speaker this time. The actual walls were buzzing. Low, crackling static. Like an old TV stuck between channels. And inside the static, I began to hear whispers. Very faint at first. But they grew louder. Not in volume. In presence. It was like they were crawling inside my head, wrapping around my thoughts. I tried to focus. Tried to block it out. But one whisper stood out from the rest. Said my name. Clear. Sharp. Like a blade cutting through fog. Hassan. I looked around, heart racing. Who's there? No answer. Just more static. Then I saw something that made me freeze. The camera, the little red light, was no longer blinking. It was staring. And I don't mean it metaphorically. The lens had changed. Had an iris. Pupil. It wasn't a camera anymore. 'Twas an eye. Watching me. Unblinking. Judging. I backed away slowly until my spine hit the cold wall behind me. Then I noticed something else. The mirror was no longer showing my reflection. It was showing the room. But not from my angle, from a higher angle. Like it was watching from the ceiling. And in the mirror there were 4 people standing behind me. Turned quickly. No one. I looked back at the mirror. They were still there. But they weren't just standing. They were swaying. Slowly. Rhythmically. Like they were stuck in some kind of trance. And their faces were all mine. 4 identical versions of me. Blank eyes. Mouths sewn shut with thick, black thread. Heads tilted slightly like broken dolls. I screamed. The static got louder. The whispers turned into screeches. And then, silence. The mirror shattered. Glass flew across the room, but none of it touched me. Not a scratch. The camera I closed. And the door, I swear there was no door before, was now wide open. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. Should I run? Should I stay? Then a new voice whispered from the broken mirror. Every time you wake up, someone else takes your place. Ran. Through the open door. Into a hallway. Dark. Narrow. Endless. And behind me I heard footsteps. Not one set. Following me. Chasing me. And they all sounded exactly like mine. I didn't stop running. My feet hit the cold floor, step after step. But the hallway never ended. It was like the corridor itself was alive, stretching with every panicked breath I took. The walls were pulsing like veins under skin, and the lights overhead flickered with a rhythm that didn't feel random. It felt intentional, like it was syncing with my heartbeat. And behind me, the footsteps, still there, still mine. I screamed, but no sound came out. It was as if my voice had been stolen mid-run. My lips moved, my throat burned, but the silence was absolute. I looked over my shoulder. No one, but I felt them, breathing down my neck, mirroring every move I made. Stop. Everything stopped. The lights, the hallway, even the air felt frozen. I turned around. Nothing. The hallway behind me looked the same as the one ahead. Endless. Me. But then, without warning, the floor shifted under my feet. Like an elevator dropping, but sideways. My body crashed into the wall, and the hallway moved. It was rotating. The hallway itself spun around like a twisted carnival ride, tossing me off my feet. I slammed into the opposite wall, my head ringing. I tried to grab onto something, anything, but the walls were smooth, damp, and impossibly warm, like skin. Then the lights died, pitch black, and in that perfect silence, I heard breathing. Not mine, not 4 sets, just one, right next to my ear. It whispered, "You're still asleep, Hassan. But now we are awake." I turned to face it, but there was no face. Just 2 small glows like eyes, floating in the dark. They blinked once, and suddenly the lights came back on. But I wasn't in the hallway anymore. I was in the observation room again, the one where the scientists had left me earlier. Except this time it was empty. No cameras, no desk, no doors, just me. And a single object in the center of the room. My camera, the one I brought to vlog this whole thing. It was resting on a chair, perfectly centered and powered on. Recording. I walked toward it slowly, knees weak, breath shallow. The screen was black, but then an image flickered on. Me, leaping, right there on the hospital bed. But something was wrong. My eyes were wide open, and I was smiling. Not a natural smile. Not mine. The kind of smile you only see in nightmares. Then my reflection in the camera looked straight at me and whispered, "Stop trying to wake up. You're not supposed to leave." I dropped the camera. It didn't hit the floor. Hovered, midair. And then it spun rapidly, facing me again, and the screen shifted. New footage. Not of me. People. Doctors. Nurses. Scientists. All lying on the floor. Open. Mouths frozen mid-screen. But I walked slowly down the hall. The lights above flickered and buzzed, and every flicker made the shadows move. And in those shadows, I saw them again. Figures. Unmoving. Watching. Tall, faceless silhouettes standing at the ends of side corridors. Some looked like doctors, others like patients, but all had the same unnatural stillness, like mannequins frozen mid-thought. Then one of them moved. not with footsteps, glided straight across the hall ahead of me, froze. My heart pounded louder than my footsteps, louder than my breath. I pressed myself against the wall, waiting, praying I'd imagined it. But then I saw it again. Not one, all of them, slowly turning their heads toward me. Still no eyes, just featureless, pale faces staring through me. Suddenly I heard my name. Hassan. A whisper, but not from them, came from the ceiling. I looked up, and there I was, my face, staring back at me, mouth open, eyes wide, glowing faintly. I screamed and stumbled back. And in that moment, the corridor twisted again, pulling me sideways like a gravity shift. I was falling, but there was no floor to land on, just the endless sound of whispers, 1,000 voices overlapping in my ears. You volunteered. You asked to see. You wanted to stay awake. Light, blinding white light. I opened my eyes. I was lying on a bed, back in the experiment room, strapped down. My heart leapt with hope. It's over. I woke up. Thank God. I looked around. There were doctors watching me from the other side of the glass window. One of them stepped forward and spoke into the mic. Subject 27. Returning to consciousness. But, he paused. His vitals are still in REM sleep. Wait, what? I tried to sit up, but my arms were tied tight. I tried yelling, but my voice didn't reach them. I started banging my head against the bed, trying to wake up, begging. Then the intercom crackled again. One of the doctors said, "He's dreaming that he's awake again. We've seen this before." Another voice replied, "This is the 4th time today. It's getting worse." I screamed louder, shaking the bed. But they couldn't hear me, because I wasn't really awake. They were watching a dream inside a dream. Loop. And I was stuck in it. Again. Forever. I slowly opened my eyes, but the world around me felt strange, like I was looking through fogged glass. The room was quiet, but I could still hear faint whispers just beyond my reach. I tried to move my arms, but the restraints held me tightly. Panic bubbled inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. The faces of the doctors appeared on the other side of the glass, their expressions unreadable. One of them adjusted a monitor, watching my brain waves flicker erratically. They spoke in low voices, but their words seemed distant, like echoes from far away. Suddenly, the room began to shift. The walls melted away into shadows, and I was back in that dark corridor with the silent figures, their empty eyes fixed on me, and the air grew cold, heavy with something I could not name. I heard my name whispered again, softer this time, like a warning. I tried to scream, to run, but my body was trapped in this endless nightmare. Then a voice, clear and sharp, cut through the darkness. "You must wake up." I blinked, and this time I did. Gasping, I sat up in the hospital bed, sweat soaking my clothes. The restraints were gone. The monitors showed steady signs of life. Had I finally escaped? Or was this just another layer of the sleep experiment? A new trap waiting to close? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. The nightmare wasn't over. Not yet. The moment I thought I had finally woken up, a heavy silence pressed down on me like a thick fog. My eyes darted around the room. The walls were plain, sterile white, but something felt wrong. The air was too still, too cold. I could almost taste the fear lingering like metal on my tongue. I tried to move freely, but every muscle felt weak and heavy, as if I was submerged underwater. The monitors beside my bed beeped steadily, but their light flickered oddly, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist on the ceiling. I blinked, but the shadows didn't go away. Instead, they moved. And then I saw it. a dark shape lurking just beyond the doorway. Too big to be a person, yet too real to ignore. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The door creaked open slowly, and a figure stepped into the room. It wasn't one of the doctors I remembered. Its face was hidden in darkness, but its eyes shone like cold embers. It didn't speak, but I felt its gaze pierce through me, like it was reading every secret in my mind. I tried to force my legs to move, to get away, but my body refused to listen. The figure glided closer, and the temperature in the room dropped so suddenly I could see my breath in the air. Suddenly, the figure reached out a hand, long, thin fingers stretching toward me. Just before it touched my skin, the world twisted again. I was back in the experiment room, but everything was distorted. The walls bent unnaturally. The ceiling stretched into a dark abyss. I wasn't alone. Around me, shadowy faces hovered, their eyes empty voids, mouths moving but no sound coming out. They whispered my name over and over, each voice overlapping, echoing in my mind until it felt like my head would split. Then I heard the loud crack of glass shattering. I snapped awake, this time truly awake. But the terror didn't leave me, because as I opened my eyes, I saw the camera sitting on the table nearby, and in its lens, I saw those same dark eyes staring back at me, watching, waiting. The room felt colder than ever, the chill seeping into my bones like icy fingers. I stared at the camera on the table, its black surface gleaming under the harsh fluorescent light. It wasn't supposed to be here. I hadn't brought it with me. Yet there it sat, silent and ominous, as if waiting for me. I reached out slowly, my hand trembling. The moment my fingers brushed the camera, a shiver shot through me, and the lights flickered. For a second I thought I saw a face, twisted and cruel, reflected in the lens. But when I blinked, it was gone. I backed away, heart pounding. My mind raced to make sense of what was happening. Was this still part of the experiment? Or something far darker? I tried to speak, to call for help, but my voice was weak, barely a whisper. The door to the room creaked open, but no one came in. Instead, a cold breeze swept past me, carrying with it a faint, haunting melody. It sounded like a lullaby, but twisted, off-key, and filled with sorrow. Suddenly, my vision blurred, and I was no longer in the room. I found myself standing in a forgotten forest at night, the trees towering above me like silent watchers. The air was thick with mist, and the ground beneath my feet was soft with dead leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a camera shutter clicked. I turned toward the sound and saw a figure, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, face hidden in shadows, holding an antique camera. The figure raised the camera and aimed it at me. I wanted to run, but my feet were frozen to the spot. The flash went off, and the world exploded into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the sterile room, gasping for air. The camera was still on the table, but now it had a photo sitting beside it. I picked up the photo, my hands shaking. It was a picture of me, taken from the forest, but I had never been there. And I knew, without a doubt, that this nightmare was far from over. The photo trembled in my hands, its cold surface sending chills up my spine. I stared at the image, me standing alone in that eerie forest, eyes wide with fear. How could this be? I had never been there. Or had I? The lines between reality and nightmare were blurring faster than I could keep up. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered again, plunging me into darkness for a split second. When the light returned, the photo was gone. My heart slammed in my chest as I scanned the table, and there in its place was a small, folded note. With trembling fingers, I unfolded it. The message was written in shaky, almost desperate handwriting. You shouldn't have taken the picture. Now they see you. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I swallowed hard, the weight of those words sinking deep into my mind. They see me. Who were they? And what did they want? I tried to stand, but my legs felt weak, as if invisible chains held me down. My breath came out in short gasps. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls bending, warping as whispers surrounded me from every corner. The voices weren't friendly. They hissed warnings and secrets I couldn't understand, yet every word sliced through me like a knife. Suddenly, the camera's lens glowed red, like an eye awakening. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was alive, watching me. I realized then that this experiment was no longer about sleep or dreams. It was about survival. And whatever haunted that camera wasn't going to let me go. Not without a fight. The red glow from the camera's lens pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. Slow, menacing, alive. I wanted to drop it, to run away. But something invisible held me rooted to the spot. My skin prickled as the whispers grew louder, overlapping into a terrifying roar inside my head. Suddenly, the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a living creature. Shadows stretched across the floor and climbed up the walls, twisting into shapes I couldn't quite make out. Faces, hands, eyes, all watching me, waiting. I closed my eyes tightly, hoping to escape. But when I opened them again, I wasn't alone in the room anymore. Behind me, standing just inches away, was a figure. Tall, dark, and silent. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but I could feel its cold gaze drilling into my soul. I wanted to scream, to fight, but my voice was gone. The figure reached out slowly, its hand trembling like it was made of smoke. A chill ran down my spine as the fingertips brushed my skin. In that moment, my body went numb, and I felt myself slipping, falling deeper into the darkness that had trapped me from the start. I was no longer sure where the experiment ended and the nightmare began. All I knew was that I was trapped, and whatever this presence was, it wasn't done with me yet. Not by a long shot. The darkness swallowed me whole. Yet through the blackness, faint flickers of light began to appear, like memories trying to break free. Faces, places, sounds from my past mixed with strange, terrifying images that didn't belong to me. I was losing myself, caught between two worlds, the waking and the dreaming. The hooded figure was still there, silent but watching. Suddenly, it reached into its cloak and pulled out the camera, the same camera that had haunted me since the experiment began. It lifted the lens, and I felt an unbearable pressure, like the weight of 1,000 eyes staring straight into my soul. Then, without warning, the camera clicked. A blinding flash burst through the darkness, and I was thrown backward, gasping for breath. The room around me snapped back into focus. The sterile white walls, the humming machines, the harsh fluorescent lights. But something was different. The camera lay shattered on the floor, broken into pieces. The door to the room creaked open slowly. I stood up, my body weak but my mind clearer than ever. I was free, or at least I thought I was. As I stepped out, I glanced down at my phone. There, in my photo gallery, was a new picture, taken just moments ago, of me. But behind me in the background was the hooded figure, smiling. And I knew then, this nightmare was far from over.